the missing link and how to reestablish the connection between evidence and compassion. If you allow me to explore this idea with you, this part of the game with heroes and villains, players and directors, conductors, actors, both interactive and non-interactive. And through our choice, we position ourselves within that matrix. And through our participation level, if we decide to do something about it, we can level up. We can move through the ranks, if you will, through the degrees, where we become more active in our natural environment. And you can increase your stamina and your endurance and all these aspects in which we see happen naturally in our lives, right? If you go to the gym and work out, chances are your body is going to start to tune and perform better with more repetition, with more action, because there is a process in which reward comes through for activity. And the activities in which we performed here, where you get to be the judge of, because this is part of the experimental process in which we are in now, creating this game, right? Is we performed 4 experiments. Those 4 experiments actually relate to the elements themselves. And now that we are in the 5th element, we should just do a quick recap on what elements we performed to provide the novelty and uniqueness of each individual practice, and how activity brings back great reward as evidenced by what we have done here, right? And again, you can go back and look at this. So the Trinity experiment was the first one, and then we had the last factor experiment, we had the private experiment, and then we had the echo experiment. Each one of those actually relates to your body. The Trinity experiment is your mind. The lash factor is your gut. The echo experiment is your heart. And the private experiment is your body. And this is how we encrypted this process. So that way you can go back and you can utilize the elements themselves, because the elements also have their own sovereignty and jurisdiction, because we built that for them within each practice in which we performed here. So the Trinity experiment brings you air, that beautiful element. And air has force, as opposed to the lash factor, which is pressure, and that has power, okay? It is the mother, the gut, right, to the father, the mind, where air resides, so to speak, okay? And then you have the echo experiment, which is the heart. And this is the present moment too, by the way. This is why your hands come out of your chest, because your hands do things in the now, only in the now. That is what your hands do. And you have the electric and the magnetic, and we discussed this, but that is encoded through the echo experiment. So you can bring things from the future into your present just as easily as you can bring things from your past into your present, utilizing this magical practice, what we talked about within the echo experiment. So remote viewing, time travel, and magic. The trinity of this channel, where remote viewing is the Trinity experiment, magic, the lash factor, and time travel within the echo experiment. Now, the fourth, the private one, is Tantra. So that way we can build these things correctly, because that's one of the aspects that you'll learn from the hypertech system, is things are in correction. And we haven't really discussed that too much, because the correction, how to correct, is in the lash factor. Correction comes from power, not necessarily from force. You can't force things to correct. It's like you can't, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So it's really up to the individual to decide what is important to them and how they receive the information. And one of the aspects that is in relationship to each of the models that I would like to include into your narrative, if possible, at least the ones in which we are performing here, is that there is an infinite nature to each model of our reality. Okay? So if you are a globe model person, you have an infinite universe in which you from the Big Bang, right, that has expanded to numbers that are so astronomical that we do not know the ends of the universe, right? So therefore we know that we don't know all the boundaries of that model. So that's good, because that is a connection it has to, like, the flat earth model. And the flat earth model is like this infinite plane of density, right, where it's about temperature and pressure. It's about electricity and magnetism, right? This battery style of universe, as opposed to the Big Bang, the explosions of the globe model, right? Gravity as opposed to density. You have that model, which is also infinite. There's more land. There's life. There's everything. Just where do you want to go? Just explore the great floor of the earth, so to speak. So there's that model, and then there's the Mobius model, which looks like a figure 8, which is also infinite as well. It's like a giant recording, and where everything that you do is downloaded and uploaded and watched by our Creator infinitely. So you have that model as well, and you have the toroid model, which is motion and movement, or the constant spin of all things. So you'll note, and that's like the inner earth, and how it's like an egg or a shell or a buckyball, right? There's all these different terms in which you can use to describe the cell, if you will. So each one of these has an infinite nature built into it as well. So we know that is the connection in the relationship between these narratives. So that would give you the idea, okay, to explore, right? I'm not suggesting that this is the way it is. I'm suggesting it's worthy of exploring, is that if there's an infinite nature to this, there is an intelligence greater than our own that is in operation. And there is an avenue, an aspect to communicate with that and build a relationship and connection to that aggregated system. That is the suggestion on the performance of the game. And to share with you the hypertech encryption and how this works, so that way you have efficiency and ease when maneuvering, right? You need these models and these understandings of these models in order to participate with others, okay? And also for you to find yourself. And once you find yourself, then share thyself. And this is what we're doing here. And I'm bringing the coalescent sciences to you, the future sciences, right? I teach remote viewing, time travel, and magic. So people who are interested in knowing about how the future works and how the past works and how to bring that into the present and the present moment, which is what I lovingly call the gift matrix, right? A present is a gift. You've heard me say this many times. I like to share the ever-present now with you, and hopefully you participate within this moment where you change the world. So when I mentioned the globe model, the Mobius model, the flat model, and the inner earth model, right? All these different models, these are in relation to the elements. And within hypertech, the elements are in relation to the body. So you can structure these narratives in your body for greater wisdom and understanding, so to speak, for greater access to the aggregated system, because you know how harmony works. So it's easy for you to stay on a train of thought to retrieve information that you're looking for, past, present, or future. Remote viewing is an aspect of that. there's remote influencing, and there's remote projection. So there's a trinity built in there too. And all of those create a body, okay, in the local that you can access into the aggregate. So you will find that the globe model is the mind, the head, where they use a system of planets and spheres, right? And this is all about attention. And attention is the air sign. So it's in your head, and it's about reason and intellect, okay? The numbers that they use are astronomical, right? Those are structured like that for a reason, right? You can't use a calculator to figure these things out because the universe is so big. Then, of course, the Mobius, that is the body. That's how you encrypt that. It's a clock. Everything that you do, every action that you perform is recorded, like on the Akashic record, and you can have access to this anytime because everything is pretty much a construct within the Mobius. So there's that, and that relates to the body. So it's about aptitude, where that model is where you build skills and talents, right? Where the globe model is where you build reason and intellect, where the flat earth model is the heart, and that's like influences and the gods, right? And how, the blood pumps through the heart. So this plays an important role with that because it's about attitude when it comes, to that particular model. And then you have the inner earth, which is the gut, right? And that's about behavior and angels and demons, okay? So it's like where the factory is, where the production is, okay? Good and bad. Oh, that tasted good, that tasted bad, right? It's one or the other. So, of course, there is a fifth model, which is what reality is. And what reality is the coalescence of all of these things. Reality is actually the harmony of all these. So that's really the structure of the game, is for you to be introduced to the harmony matrix, the gift matrix, okay? And then you participate within this by seeing the relationships and connections, because you are an observer. And as an observer, the next stage is for you to test that observation, okay? And then, of course, there's the sixth model, and that's the simulation. And we're not going to discuss that here because that is for future talks, and that gets into things that require a lot more attention and detail. But let's do the fun part. How do these things connect? How is important because within the systems in which you are learning here, how is pretty much at your core. It is health and wealth, and then the four elements in which you use to create your journey, your quest, what it is that, your purpose is, your aim. And then you can direct that if you wish, because you have choice, you have free will. You can either allow somebody else to direct you, or you can direct yourself, or you can have a blend, right? It's not always about extremes. So this brings us to what I lovingly call the rainbow bridge, or the moment bridge. This is the connectivity that you utilize. It's like the interstate system in which you travel on to receive information. So this is one aspect of a practice in which you can use to accumulate your wealth, so to speak, and your health. And you can use this as a path and as a journey to follow, okay? So this is where it's going to get controversial. This is where people are going to have friction. And this is important. This is necessary to come to understand that friction and to face that friction. If you feel anything when we discuss the trinity of evidence and compassion, see, I've never discussed that with you here. This is the key that unlocks the door from the perspective of this channel. All right, this is why we save the best for last, right? It's more enjoyable that way. People hopefully will find this to be of great value and worth for them, a just cause, something to stand up for, something to fight for, if you will, on the war angle, or something to create on the Renaissance, right? Because we can have all of these. We can have extremes of these. We can have a blend. Whatever our choice is, this is the gift that we are given. So, with that said, the connection between evidence and compassion, when those two come together like a battery, okay, it creates a third. It creates something new, okay? That union of evidence and compassion creates morality. Yes. Thanks, everybody. I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'll talk to you soon. It's offensive and it's defensive, is it not? Cheers.
In the very strictest scientific sense, what we're really talking about here is something that exists in nature. When I use the word natural, I'm not talking about anything other than that. Existing in nature, having a basis in reality, having a basis in truth. Very simply defined and general definition for the word natural. Many people will even have a negative connotation of the word natural because they'll associate it with something like Darwinism, they'll associate it with something like social Darwinism, etc., and we're not talking about Darwinistic notions or Darwinistic theory when we use the word natural. We're simply talking about something that's inherent to creation, the most fundamental definition of the word natural that we could give there. In other words, it's not man-made. It's not caused by humankind in any way. It's something that is not dependent on humankind for its existence. It exists in nature independently from humanity. That's the first part of the term. Again, giving a definition like this is great because many people will hear the term natural law and they have a prior connotation to what they already think it means. They may have heard a soundbite from someplace. They may have heard someone else try to explain it. So natural, inherent, having a basis in reality and truth and not caused by humanity. And then the word law, let's define that. That's a condition that exists, okay, that is both binding, meaning it has an effect, and the effect is not dependent upon belief, and it is immutable, meaning that no matter what we do, that effect cannot be changed. That condition is there, and it is there because creation put it there, and we're not in a position to change that being in effect. So it's an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. When we put these two things together, we have the basic working definition for the concept of natural law. It is a set of universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable conditions that do something. Okay, they're actively working to do something. And what they do is these universal binding conditions govern the consequences of intelligent beings' behavioral choices. They are a set of laws that govern intelligent beings' behavioral choices. It's a body of universal spiritual laws that exist in nature, which act as the governing dynamics for consciousness. And it brings to us the consequences of the behavioral choices that we choose on a daily basis. That is what natural law actually is.